For all my weak blazers out there, I'm Rizz up all your hosts tonight. And to all my ops out there in the chat, I'm living rent-free in your head while your salty asses watch me blow up with these bussin' videos. And if you felt uncomfortable hearing me say that, I felt uncomfortable saying that. But today we are hearing David Foster Wallace's thoughts on slang words and adults using slang words. And there are different levels of cringe in regards of how you use slang. And David's going to kind of do a deep dive into all the different aspects of slang. And if you guys don't already know, Writeconscious is the headquarters of everything related to David Foster Wallace here on YouTube. If you go look at the playlist down below, there are over 50 videos on Wallace already. And enough yapping from me, let us get started. Quote, I don't analyze it, but I think we've all noticed it. And we've all noticed the kind of sneering amusement that it occasions. There's something pathetic about it. What's interesting is why it's pathetic. It's pathetic because somebody who's older is, by definition, not a member of the set of a bunch of teenagers who are sitting around doing MTV speak, right? It's pathetic because it's knocking on a door that nobody's going to open, right? It's pathetic the same way that Rudolph's saying, can I play the reindeer games? And they're saying, no, 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 go away is. It's pathetic in that the person that's trying it is kind of a schlemiel. And we love to laugh at pathetic schlemiels, particularly who are trying to look the opposite of that, right? People who are attempting to signal, well, social climber would be the old-fashioned term, right? We reserve a special kind of amused scorn for people who are trying to signal inclusion in a group to which they don't rightfully belong. This is why people who speak or write poorly in the form of hypercorrection, and in that case make errors, throw the ball to Brian and I or something on the level of my nervous system, bug me a whole lot more than if somebody from my hometown says, hey, can Brian and me come over and watch TV, right? Because the person who misuses what they think is correct is the correct I, is trying to signal a level of sophistication through which signal they are. Ah, see, I'm putting it too obtrusely. They're trying to signal a level of linguistic sophistication to which they have just shown they are not entitled to, right? And what's really interesting about this isn't just David Foster Wallace grumbling, is that we as writers have to be connected to the different levels of humanity. But is that really true? When you look at the bookshelf behind me, I'm always referencing, do you think any of these guys who at times do write about young people are doing research and they're like, okay, I'm going to include the word Rizz in here? They don't need those words because if you are a good writer, then you can write interesting characters and plots and build a world, and you don't necessarily need the slang vernacular unless you're doing a deep dive into a certain type of character. But it's very rare when kind of an experienced author who's pushing on in their career into their 40s and 50s and 60s is going to do a profile on a contemporary young person. Most of the time when you see it, for instance, like David Foster Wallace did in his short story, A Girl with the Curious Hair, he kind of sets it back in time a little bit, or uses characters that wouldn't use slang words in the first place, that are maybe a part of a alternative group. So I think it's a lie that we tell ourselves that we need to be connected to modern and contemporary culture, especially youth culture, if we want to be able to write about it. Because one of the least complex things about our society is what teenagers are thinking and doing, because they will continue to do that for all of time. All they are doing is reacting to the environment that the adults have created. And so if you understand the environment that the adults and the media are pushing upon them, then you understand how they're going to react. And their little slang words for the common aspects of their reality. Like one of them is cool. You know, cool can be dope or rad or whatever other word for what era you're in. Now that, you know, someone is a Rizzler or showing Rizz, but that used to just be a player, or back a long time ago, a pimp, a gigolo, a Casanova, a Don Juan. You guys get the point. But in my reality with my friends and in my groups, we're not dealing with any Casanovas. Everybody has a career. Everyone's mostly married. And so that's not a thing. And here we have Wallace kind of breaking the shell a little bit and showing some pretentiousness, some elitism, as a lot of people would like to say, because most people act like this, even if they are not consciously aware of it. A lot of if you watch pro sports, a lot of athletes are very young. And if you're following those athletes, even if you are older, you are subjected to their endless idiocy and what they're doing. And if you listen to the interviews, so you're hearing these slang words and you feel like it's normal. You feel like these people are at the forefront of culture, and at some level they are. And the same goes with musicians and rappers and anyone that's basically new in society. But most of the time, and this is a generalization, the people who are obsessed with new pop music or rap music that isn't like conscious rap, but like the mainstream music, mainstream sports, mainstream things of any regard, most of the time, they are not the most intelligent people in regards of conscious thought. Maybe they went to school and got a good degree and they are an order follower and are successful. But in terms of free thinking, they most of the time are not on the top of that list. And what you want your 20s to be, and this is, a lot of the time you hear about the 20s, right? And when I look at people who I look up to and I see what they did in their 20s, when I was in my 20s, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Most of the time they said, I'm not going to live this like it's my 20s. Most people are like, go out and party and, you can hook up with all these women and travel the world and do all this. And that never appealed to me because I was always asking the question, what's my purpose in life? Where am I trying to go? What am I trying to do? Getting with random women, going to bars and having fun, that means nothing, because I'm never going to see these people again. And if I did that, I would still maybe be trapped in that cycle of hanging out with these partial matches. And when you look at Wallace's early life, he was going to a very good university at Amherst. Then he came to the University of Arizona in Tucson, and he pushed a lot of people away. He was very focused. By the time he was 24, 25 years old, he had already published 2 books that got decent advances, made him tens of thousands of dollars, probably in our money, $70 or $80,000 worth of money. And he was already acting like a professional writer. And it was very hard on him and he ended up in rehab. But that experience alone was very valuable because by the time he got out of his 20s, he was stone cold sober for the rest of his life. He had found God. He had found a way to be able to stay focused and keep an exercise routine and start to learn a lot of the lessons about love and stuff that so many people in our society still don't understand today, because more so every single year we have more people who are lonely, unhealthy, not intelligent. And that number is increasing every year, at least in the United States. And as I've talked about on the program before, the best way to not be lonely, the best way to find a very good person to date and to marry is to be a high quality match. And the only way to be a high quality person is to put a bunch of time into yourself. And that has zero to do with your career or a job, because the right person really isn't going to care what you are doing as long as you're not like a lazy bum. But see, these are the things that you are working on during that time. And when we talk about the people that don't do that, so you get to live out your 20s. Now you're in your 30s. Now you're living the career. And what starts to happen? Oh my God, the midlife crisis, the Saturn return, all these different things start to get in your way. The quitting of the job and the van life and the moving to the farm and just continuing to be a yuppie and be weird. That is really a cornerstone of American culture, is just this kind of cycle of up and down. And when you are going through these crises, you are looking back to that time. You are trying to go back, and because you don't have any authenticity in your soul. If you are a high level person, if you have worked on yourself a lot and you want to look back, and let's say if you are a man like David Foster Wallace, a guy who dated a lot of women in college and women in their early 20s, he didn't have to act like, kind of this cool dude. He just had to act like David Foster Wallace because they wanted to be with the man who was a professional artist who had put a lot of effort into his life. If you are an accomplished 38-year-old, you have more opportunities most of the time to date women in their 20s than guys in their 20s do, without having to act any differently than how you are. So it's kind of this big lie and this big trap that people get caught in. And every other thing, like travel, like, oh my God, are you going to travel? And what are you going to do before you have kids? You can travel with kids. What type of travel? So you're going to travel in your 20s and not have any money and go around and once again, just have all these fun experiences. But right now, I traveled a lot in my 20s, and looking back, it necessarily wasn't worth it, because now I want to do a different type of travel. I like to go and be very nuanced and do historical tours, or really experience an area and take it very slow. And that's because I'm older now. I want to experience a place, not go there to have fun or check it off a list. And in your 20s, you have the most amount of energy. And so why would you want to waste that energy on dumb things? Why would you not wait until you're old in your 30s or 40s and you have nothing left to, go actually have fun, to actually go relax, because you can't, put in the 12-hour days to get where you want to go. So it is cringe when people are acting like this. And it's not elitist, or I guess we could say it's pretentious and elitist, but I am very weirded out by this because as a teacher, I see teachers trying to do this all the time. People, because I am in the war zone every single day. That's how I know all those words I said at the start. I'm hearing the new words. I hear the evolution. I see the evolution of style and who everyone's listening to, and it happens all the time. And I know some teachers who, think that if they do that and they keep up with all that and talk like that and are kind of aligned with that they can connect with the students easier. And I think that's true, but that's not how I want my students to see me. I want them to see me as someone who took writing and reading seriously, who was taking life seriously, and all aspects of it. And that my definition of fun and a good time is much crazier. Like my sister is a teacher and she's really into ayahuasca, and she's got this really great group and they do ayahuasca all the time. But none of her students know that. But they think that, hanging out with your friends and getting drunk or smoking a joint is some crazy experience. And it's that is literally less than 1%, even just 0.01% of the depth that you can explore and the high that you can give, which doesn't really matter. That what the high means nothing. But in terms of revealing things and discovery of different aspects of consciousness, the psychedelic journey, when done in a conscious way, especially if you're doing it with a group or with people who've been doing it for decades and they're leading you kind of on these journeys, it makes those experiences in high school partying like a drop in the bucket. And so that's the point of growing up. You magnify every single experience from when you were young. So trying to look back to those immature experiences, when I look back, I'm like, dude, do I really want to be doing graffiti again? It's no, why would I want to do that? That was dumb then. And I would never even think of wanting to go back or idolizing that because I went through it. I'm moving through. It's an evolution. That's the whole point. We're raising up in consciousness. Another point that Wallace makes is that when people try to act smart and have some form of sophistication, and you just have to, as a writer, and as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, we don't know a lot. Even though here I am at the captaining this ship, I mess up all the time. I blank out sometimes because it's 4:30 in the morning, like it's right now when I'm filming these, but I mess up words, I mispronounce names, I sometimes don't say words or just skip through things. And even though I'm teaching you guys usage and grammar, I mess it up all the time. And when I hope to you guys, it's I hope that it doesn't seem like I'm swinging out, swinging above my level right now or in any of my videos. I saw a comment not too long ago. I don't remember what it was, but someone was like, this guy's dumb because he says this. And I looked and I was like, yeah. But then someone else said in the comment, it was because he's from he has a Rocky Mountain dialect and that's what they say over there. And I was like, oh, wow. So I guess I'm wrong, but then I'm right because this is my dialect. And I remember one time one of my professors, he asked me, are you from Las Vegas? And I went, yep. And he was like, there's the Southwestern dialect. And I thought, and then I was like, God, what am I, Billy Parham from, Cormac McCarthy's The Crossing right now? What am I talking like? Yep, that's how I respond to a question. And Wallace was, talked about both ways. So we talked about going down, punching down to try to act like you're with teenagers and using their slang words, or punching up and acting like you're more sophisticated than you are. And the best way to counteract all of this, and something that a lot of people are missing, is just riffing with your friends, just talking about fun, intellectual, or creative stuff with your friends or with people a lot, hopefully in person, because most of the time it helps you become a really good communicator. I maybe am not the best communicator in the world, but the reason I can talk like I can right now is because my friends and I, for a long time growing up, for years of my life, would just sit for hours every single night. We'd come home from college or our jobs or even in high school, and we would just sit and chat for hours about the things we read or these ideas, and we'd watch a video and just talk about that for hours. And it really helped me develop this skill of talking where I'm supposed to be. Because when you're talking to your friends, you're not acting like you're in a college class and you're not saying these wild words, but you're slowly integrating new words. You want to keep raising the level every single night. You want to keep going, and there's some trajectory that you're on. So slowly advancements start to sprinkle into that. And when I look at someone like a Cormac McCarthy or a David Foster Wallace, what did they both have? They had a lot of friends that they talked to. Cormac McCarthy was a very social guy. There's a story about a famous Cormac McCarthy scholar, and he was going to the University of Tennessee when McCarthy was going to the University of Tennessee, and he was in a different department. I think he was in sociology or philosophy or something. And someone invited him to this party. There was this wild party on the mountain at some dude's house. And the guy decided that night that he was going to study for a big test he had the next day instead of going to that party. And lo and behold, it was Cormac McCarthy's party. And if you look at Suttree and stuff, that whole novel is just him talking with his friends. David Foster Wallace went to Amherst and, had a bunch of very intelligent friends there who he later wrote books with. And they would just, talk and talk and talk. And a lot of us had this when we were younger, but do you have this now? Are you still continuing this into your 30s and your 40s? And I don't think online Discord chats or something like that really cut it, because there's something when you see someone react and you're building it together and you have that third body outside of you that's growing and you're, forming it into something beautiful. And what's also cool about that is that when you're with your friends, and why I think it's so is because you integrate slang too. You figure out ways that you don't have to sound professional all the time or like perfect. And, even transcending what Wallace is saying here, it makes it seem like it's normal, like the way you communicate and the pathways that you learn. Because a lot of the stuff I say to you guys, some of the rants that maybe you're like, wow, I really resonate with that. That's from 12 years ago. I've just been working on that thing for 12 years. It's almost like a comedy bit. It's something me and my friends figured out and like really love to say to each other a long time ago. But if you're hanging out with your buddies and you're like, yeah, that's Rizz, bro, and they're actually smart, they're going to laugh at you. They're going to say, that's not going to fly. But, kind of the lower level slang words that are a little bit more funny, they may slip in. I have a story. One of my buddies, so we used to have this circle, right? And of course, it was rare if a woman showed up, right? Like at times throughout the history of my friends, like there were women involved, but most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, it was just a bunch of guys talking. And one of my buddies started dating this like early Instagram model type girl. Like now she's an Instagram model and married to a professional athlete. And she started coming over. And obviously she didn't like what we were saying. She necessarily couldn't follow it. But at that time, this is like 2010, 2011, Joey Diaz, I don't know if you guys know him. He's a comedian. He was really big at that time, like on the internet. And he always says, yo, cocksuckers. And so one of my friends like said cocksucker a lot, like about everything, like stop being a cocksucker. And this guy would be so mean. Like I was respectful to the Instagram model. Like I'm respectful to most people. Like if they want to speak, I'll like help build them up in their thoughts. Like, I guess I'm a born teacher. But my friend, he would just say, we'll say her name is Sally. He'd be like, shut up, Sally. And so they had this like tense energy. I remember one time she like had this explosion. She was like, all you fucking say is cocksucker. Who the fuck says cocksucker? You sound like a fucking idiot. And she's going crazy. So she didn't like that slang word. Like saying cocksucker in 2011 to a kind of a woke person, like that didn't like really register in the brain. I don't think it still would. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for supporting great literature and this channel. And if you guys want more videos on David Foster Wallace, go check out the playlist down below and I will see you in the next video.